Hello, I'm Maria Hall Brown, and this is LA Currents. Well, he is our council member for CD3, but lately I am sure you've heard his name quite often in regards to the fact that he is chair of the LA Budget, Finance, and Innovation Committee. And budget has been the buzzword around Los Angeles for a few months now. I'm delighted to be joined by Bob Blumenfield. So nice to have you here.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So much has been touted, brought up, talked about in regards to the LA City budget. And I was hoping that you would be gracious and kind enough to kind of give me a little bit more of a full version, kind of a civics lesson in how this whole thing works.
Happy to talk about it. We just completed the budget process where we take the mayor's proposed budget, and then as a committee, then I lead the committee as chair, we go through that budget line by line. We bring up every department. It's a very long process. The mayor had to make some major cuts. And then as a committee, we kind of go in more with a scalpel and a nuance and try to move positions around, make sure that critical services won't be left behind, that we'll be able to continue our critical services. But really a lot of what we do is that nuance work to make sure that the positions being cut are not going to prevent the services from being rendered. It's important to note that when you're cutting vacancies and not current positions, you're generally saying the level of service you're providing now, you still have the same number of people. We didn't change that. Nobody's job was cut.
Right.
The hard part is the folks that were in, it's one thing if the job has been vacant for 2 years, but it gets a little trickier if the job has only been open for 2 months or 6 months, because that could very well be the natural churn where it takes a while to get someone through the city process and personnel and all the rest. So those positions might have been critical positions, but they were vacant when the mayor sort of did the big sweep, but they might have been a critical position. And that's where we spent the time on the nuance, to try to differentiate those positions.
Right, okay, so why are we in a shortfall? And by the way, what is the shortfall?
Yeah, passing the budget means that we're not in a shortfall, but why is it that we basically have the same amount of money as we did last year and we don't have enough to meet the inflation? And it's for several reasons. One, revenues have just not come in the way that we had anticipated and hoped. They were relatively flat, and some of that is still coming off of COVID. The transit occupancy tax, meaning the tourism money that we get, was relatively flat. Even the property tax didn't go up in quite the way that folks expected. So the revenues were relatively flat. You add on to that a couple of other major factors. One, the COVID dollars from the federal government have basically tapered off. So the infusion that we got to prevent the catastrophe of COVID, that funding is wearing off. The state is also having financial issues, and we get a fair amount of money from the state through pass-through programs. And the state's funding is really determined by capital gains. And so the state experienced a loss in revenue. That trickles down to us as a city as a loss in revenue. And then you add on to that, this is a year that a lot of labor contracts were open, were up for renegotiation. And especially given that we've had a couple of years of high inflation, those salaries have not kept pace. So we had a lot of labor contracts open and with a real call on the council to say we need to raise those salaries so that folks who work in the city can live in the city, so that we don't have labor strife, so that our workers are paid a fair wage for the work that they do. And when we made those decisions about those contracts and provided generous contracts for not just the police, but coalition of unions and others, that was important to do, but it really limited our choices in the budget. And going through that budget process was the consequence of those decisions that were made earlier.
Okay, so CD3.
Yes.
Lots of dynamic things happening over there. We were just talking about Reseda Rising and what an exciting event that was recently after the pandemic. And how are you feeling about your district, and what kind of progress are you looking forward to? Oh,
there's so many exciting things happening in the district. You mentioned the Reseda Rising. Reseda Rising is actually the term I use for a series of investments, over $100 million worth of investment in Reseda, to take what has been traditionally an underserved community and really lift that community up. And most of those investments are capital and infrastructure, but one of those that I've done every year is really highlighting the community, and that's the Art Walk. And we just completed that. Thousands of people came. This was the 6th annual one that we've done. We had to stop during COVID, and we pivoted and made it into a mural festival, but it's leveraging the interest in the arts as a sort of a catalyst for for more growth and interest in the area. But that's just one piece of the Reseda Rising Initiative. The biggest leg of that stool, I guess you'd say, is the ice rink. So I've been working on this for a long time, cobbling together funds, but ultimately we are now in construction for what will be the only publicly owned ice rink in the city of Los Angeles.
Oh my.
We will have a partnership with the LA Kings, and they're going to manage the facility, not just for hockey and youth leagues and adult leagues, but also figure skating and free skating and curling, and there's actually a San Fernando Valley curling team, believe it or not, and it will become a resource. And not just, and I used the word catalyst before, I've always envisioned that project as an economic catalyst for the entire area, because you invest, and it's $27 million into a public structure like that. You know, we're already seeing apartments come up nearby and people wanting to make investments, but as soon as it's up and running, there'll be coffee shops and restaurants and things, everyone will want to be nearby it, as well as other critical investments in Reseda. For example, the Reseda Theater, which is just down the street from where the rink is on Sherman Way. It has been a derelict theater for the last 20 plus years, but at one point in time it was the center of the valley and the center of Reseda. And I vowed, early on, I said, we're gonna create an entertainment experience there. We're gonna keep the marquee, which is iconic for Reseda. It will be a theater on the top level, and on the bottom level will be a food hall with local food vendors. And it will become a centerpiece for the valley and for Reseda in particular. And then behind that was an empty lot that we're able to make into senior housing, affordable housing, as part of a sort of bigger project deal. And that's already built and that's done, and people are living there. It's wonderful, it's affordable, permanent supportive as well. And in Reseda, we also completed the Reseda Complete Street, which takes all of Reseda, and you can go from Mulholland all the way to CSUN essentially, and you'll have a continuous bike lane.
Wow.
And throughout the district, you now have what's called a complete streets where you have bus bump outs to make bus riding easier. You have bioswales in portions of the parkway. It's made it into a real modern street, the way that streets really should be, with sort of complete amenities instead of doing things in a piecemeal fashion. So that's a major investment. So you can see Reseda is really rising because of the Reseda Rising Initiative, and these are just some of the many things that are happening in Reseda. But we also have investments happening all over the district. If you go a little further west in the district, along Sherman Way, you come to Canoga Park. And in Canoga Park, we've also really leveraged the interest in the arts, and we've created a Canoga Park Arts District. The centerpiece of that is the Madrid Theater, which is a community theater with a long history. And so we're giving this major facelift. And then with that, so it's not just a standalone theater, we were able to acquire just up the way what's now known as the Tosco Theater, which had been the West Valley Playhouse, which was a small community theater, privately owned, but we were able to acquire it, completely rehab it, and that is now up and running. It is what's known as an incubator, the only one of its kind, where we help incubate community arts, incubate productions, and it'll work in conjunction with the Madrid Theater down the street. So that area is also coming up in a very positive way. The sort of biggest ticket investment recently that everyone's talking about is the Rams. They're building 2 practice fields, and it's owned by the Kroenke Group, and they not only purchased the Anthem site where the Rams facility is, but they also purchased the old Promenade Mall, which was owned by Westfield and is now owned by the Kroenke Group. So they're now the largest landowner in the district. They have tremendous plans for what's going to happen on those properties. I've got a great team of folks. We're always happy to talk to people about what we're doing, but also issues that they have or ideas that people have to make the city run better, or just if someone's having a problem with any aspect of the city, we want to be there to help. So me or my team would gladly talk to anyone, and that's what this work is about. It's about service and serving the community.
Thank you so much, Bob.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you again soon.
All right.